Good afternoon, everyone. You're nearly there. It's been a long 2 days, and I know everyone's probably ready to go home now, but thanks for coming to hear me talk about mobile apps today. I'm Graham Horner from the Telegraph. This session is called Excellence in Mobile, but I would profess to sound humbler than that. I'm not going to tell you how to do it today. I'm not going to lecture you. I'm just going to share with you some of the stuff we've learnt on our journey with mobile apps. So the app landscape, 700,000 apps now in the App Store, 500,000 on Google Play, 10,000 on Windows 8. We're about to get a load more on Kindle Fire. We are drowning in apps. And as marketers, I don't suppose there's a marketer in the room who hasn't thought, help, I need an app. I've got to have an app. Apps are almost becoming hygiene. You know, it's just part of my suite. It's part of what I need. But we need to approach apps with caution. They can do many things for us, and as a business, they can be quite exciting. An app can dispense information, and the business model behind these sorts of apps is advertising, ad-funded, so you can raise money that way. E-commerce, another opportunity for apps. We've seen eBay earlier talk about theirs. That's Amazon up there. But yes, you can actually sell things via apps. You can save money via apps. You can get customers to serve themselves in a really lovely interface. So I use this one all the time. This is UK Train Times. Brilliant app. It saves me calling anyone. Subscription. Another opportunity for apps to actually raise money through subscription revenues, people paying for that service. That one is Sky Plus. And then finally, there's just fun. Apps are fun, and people will pay for fun. And also, they will happily consume your brand if you put it out there for free. I mean, this one is Lego. That's a free app, and my 4-year-old son absolutely loves it. Great brand engagement, and really, you know, engaging him in Lego in a digital way. So you'll be sitting there thinking, I need an app, but what app is right for my business? What can it do? Can it save me money? Can it make me money? Can it engage my customers? What can it do for me? And they're all legitimate questions. We all ask ourselves that. I've asked myself that. We're all targeted on various things, and we want apps to do stuff, deliver for us. But really, this is about the customer. And you've got to think, what is the app doing for the customer? How is an app different from the web? How is it different from the way they're already consuming other media? And as a channel for you as a brand, what does it add? And it can add a lot, but you've got to get that nailed before you go into this. So a bit of background on the Telegraph. The Telegraph is the most read quality daily in the UK. We have the biggest subscriber base to our print products of any UK newspaper. We also have a strong heritage in digital innovation. We were the first newspaper to launch a newspaper website back in 1994. We have embraced apps, it's fair to say. We currently have an iPad app, which is a daily edition of our paper for iPad. That's been paid for since 2011, last year, with a free trial. And print subscribers actually get that bundled into their subscription at no additional cost. We have smartphone apps. Whereas our iPad app is edition-based, so you get one edition in every morning, the smartphone apps are much more about news on the go. They're breaking news. They're available for Android and iPhone. They were paid for since earlier this year. Again, though, we have bundled those in our subscription packages to iPad and print subscribers. We also have a Kindle app, which is, again, an edition-based model, and that's been paid for since 2011. And the newest one we have is actually for Windows 8. That went live a couple of weeks ago with the launch of Windows 8. So what do I and my team and everyone at the Telegraph really obsess about when it comes to apps? Well, firstly, it's how are consumers interacting with them across platforms? Because when we put out, we bundle in an iPad app to our print subscription, we're thinking, what does that actually mean? Is that going to, is the iPad product going to cannibalize our print product? How are people going to use it together? These have real implications for our business, so it's really key that we understand that. How do they use mobile to consume news versus iPad versus web versus print? We know we kind of need to be there, but how should we be there? And what does it mean for our business, those behaviors? Second thing is, how do we actually drive subscription to apps? How do we actually get people to say, yep, this is something I'm going to pay money for and integrate it into their daily routine? And then the final thing is, what should we do next with our apps? We know with apps you cannot stand still. The law with apps is that you have to keep developing them. You can't put an app out there and just let it decay effectively. You have to keep adding value to it, keep releasing stuff to keep the consumer interested. So these are all the things we're asking on a daily basis. Now, analytics. We've heard a lot about analytics this afternoon. And what analytics does is it tells you the what. It's hugely important. Like when you put your app out there, you have to tag it. You have to be monitoring hits, usage, how many uniques are hitting it, when they're doing it, what pages they're looking at, what are they using it for. And we obsess about all of that. It's just part of our DNA. But there's a bit that analytics can't tell you, and it can't always tell you the why. Why are people doing that? It also, you can't often get a view of their complete life. So you might get a view of their life in one channel. So the analytics will tell you how a user is actually interacting with that platform. But to try and hook that person up with what they're doing on the web and what they're doing offline is a much trickier proposition, and not something that you can always get from the data. So you have to do something else. And for us, we really wanted to understand that why. Why are people acting this way? How are they doing it and why are they doing it? So what I'm just going to tell you about today is some ethnographic research we did actually into our apps, which really took it. It was quite an innovative research program that took it beyond the focus group and pure data analytics. For us, we really wanted to get into our customers' homes, and we wanted to see how are these different channels interacting, how are the apps relating to paper, how are they relating to websites, how does it all flow together, and why are consumers consuming in that way? So we actually commissioned some research, a behavioral psychologist really, to go into our customers' homes and actually live with them. And I don't mean literally live with them for days, but they went in for a day and revisited them as well, just to understand them and follow them around and see how they were consuming our products. And I guess, what was at the incentive for all this is this sort of behavioral theory, behavioral economics, nudge theory it's also called, where if you can identify just a few small things, small changes that actually deliver huge changes in behavior, it can really transform your business. So yeah, this was, it was a small sample. We had 20 households. One researcher visited them all. And we looked at a cross-section of our customers, just pure print subscribers who had activated their digital subscription and digital access. We went into pure digital subscribers' homes, just who are consuming us on iPad. And we went into our smartphone subscribers' homes as well. And the framework really is just three different things we want to understand and the interplay between them. First up, the devices. How are these devices sitting in these people's worlds? So the iPad, the smartphone. What are they doing? How are they being used? Then there's the apps. So how are people using apps on those devices? And then finally, the process of actually subscribing. How do people feel about that commitment to you, to us? How does the whole process work? So it's that interplay that we're really interested in exploring. So just to tell you, summarize the learnings in each of those camps, I suppose. When it comes to devices, what we found was everything starts here, right? This is people's relationship is first and foremost with their device. And I think as brands, we like to think it's all about with us. And we come later, and we're important. But it's initially that device that people have the relationship, the physical thing. And what you've got to do is really understand how people are relating to that. Now, we spent a lot of time looking at the iPad. And the iPad is still a relatively new technology in terms of people, it's still quite an exciting thing to arrive in a household. And the metaphor that our researcher used was it's like having a puppy in the home. So it's very disruptive. And actually, one day you don't have one day you do, and suddenly it arrives and it disrupts everything. And it's jumping around, and it needs you to change in order to make it behave. You have to train it. But the rules change as well once that puppy comes into your life. So things that you weren't allowing before, you start allowing. But over time as well, you have to adapt that puppy to fit into your life as well. And it's the same in a way with an iPad. The iPad arrives, and rules that you had before actually get broken by that device. But then also, so you sort of domesticate it, but it domesticates you as well. I'll tell you a bit about what I mean by that. Now, apologies for the very grainy nature of these photos, but it was part of the research technique that we didn't actually go in there with a professional photographer. The researcher just took the photos on his smartphone because he didn't want to be too intrusive. But anyone who has children will be very familiar with this image. They can't get their hands off the iPad. And for someone, as an adult who owns the iPad, you realize that it's a very social thing. You don't always have unfettered access to it. Unlike your mobile, which is kind of yours, the iPad has lots of attention, lots of competition for attention. So this was Kathy, and she was one of our digital subscribers, used our digital app. But when she was sort of catching moments of our content in between her daughter wanting to play games on the iPad. So her experience of us was quite fragmented in that sense. She loved the content, she loved using the app, but it was really disrupted by her child always wanting to come on. Now, this was Keith. Keith had very strict rules. He would not allow the phone to be answered during meals. He would not have the TV on. You couldn't have any sort of distraction during social time in the home. And yet, the iPad ended up on the dinner table, and this was actually out in the garden. It's kind of outrageous, that this thing arrives and it breaks all the rules that were existed in the household. Why is it suddenly okay to have this connected device with a big glaring screen on your dining table when before it wasn't okay and no one could even answer the phone during meals? It just shows again how disruptive this thing is, and people were cool with it. He was cool with it. He was like, well, it's my iPad. Yeah, well, you didn't say that about your phone last week, did you? So, it's creating new rules in the household. Again, another outrageous thing, iPads are being used as cookbooks. So there's a £400 piece of kit on the kitchen counter covered in tomato sauce and hot oil. And that's okay again. It's okay. The kitchen work surface is an okay space for the iPad. Just gets wiped down and moved around. But again, this is something, especially as a content producer, we're thinking this is really interesting because this is we're getting into spaces we probably weren't in before via this device. Here, this was Colin. He is a very familiar pose, again, to anyone who's got an iPad. He's leaning back in the sofa, playing around with it. The TV's on, there's the TV remote control. And he's sort of doing both. Again, that's very, very comfortable for them now. It's okay to be connected and have it on your lap whilst other media is going on in the background. And I think, what I like about this pose as well is it's the cross leg and it's the leaning back, and that for us is iPad. iPad is that sort of me time, that it's a very lean back medium. Love this picture. This is, again, Colin's home, and the actual laptop, as you see there, is literally gathering dust in the corner. I love the fact that the power cable is all curled up. It's rolled up. It hasn't seen the light for a long time. But again, it just shows how people are changing in their household. The iPad is replacing the laptop as the connected device in the household. Laptop's hugely important at work, still very, it's still very important for business, but iPad is becoming the thing in the home that people play with. And then mobile, in contrast to the iPad, which is the lean back, the mobile is very much the lean forward thing, the lean forward device. And I think the thing with mobile is that you never actually get someone's attention 100%. And that's the difference. It's very much about doing rather than discovering. So if that's the devices, what do we learn about the apps? Well, what we've learned is that really digital, I suppose, makes it better, is how I'd summarize it. On the whole, what it has done for us is created more Telegraph time. By being on those platforms and having apps, we've given people more opportunity to access us through the day. And rather than having sort of once and done mentality, like with print, it's kind of, I read my paper in the morning and then I'm done with it. The thing with apps and on these devices is that it's more of a stream of consciousness. And as you saw there with Kathy, with her daughter, she'll sort of grab 5 minutes and read a bit, and then she'll get distracted, but then she'll come back to it later in the day. We've talked already about the iPad. It's very much a me-time thing. It's a lean-back medium. People enjoy immersive content on it, but in certain households, there's real competition for access to it. With the iPhone, much more lean forward, much more action-oriented, tell me what I want, and that has implications for product. As I mentioned earlier, our iPhone and Android product is very much about breaking news on the go. It's tell me something quick. One of the things that we've learned as well is that iPad really complements print, and this is really positive. For us, we found that it basically, whereas the print has an established role with established day parts. It's about kind of more concentration. It's about real depth engagement. The iPad actually enhances that, and it offers new things that just enhance the print experience, like an archive, like multimedia possibilities. What we've found is that, say, our print subscribers, they enjoy They see the iPad as an additional addition in the household. They don't have to share the crossword anymore. And things like crosswords work beautifully on the iPad because you can delete text rather than having to just fill it out and cross it out with your pencil and all the rest of it. So it's very much a complementary medium. And the tablet, though, operates very, very differently to the phone, as I've mentioned before. So we're beginning to build up this picture of the digital day in the life of the Telegraph consumer and how they sort of start with the iPad, they'll move through the day to smartphone and laptop as they get to work, and then they'll go back to the iPad in the evening to do the crosswords and revisit those things they haven't had time for during the day. The third thing, very quickly, about the process is what we learned out of doing this is that in order to drive sort of conversion and to get people actually subscribing to our apps, we needed to have a conversation with people. What we were very good at, I suppose, was telling people the how, the what to do. Like, you know, here's the instructions for going to get your app, and here's how you log in. But we probably didn't have that much of a conversation with them, and there was an opportunity there, I suppose, to have more of a conversation. And we found that their tolerance for hearing from us was higher than we thought it was. They wanted us to help them discover the device. And as a content producer, we're in a really good position to do that. We know a lot, and we've got reviews of apps, and we have a lot of technology content that we could actually help them with. So we're thinking, how can we use that editorial to drive the conversation and then ultimately convince them to subscribe? So the learnings from us in a nutshell was, really, it starts with the devices. We've got to understand the devices before you can build an app. You've got to understand how the devices are being used by your customers. And for us, it was about capitalizing on that excitement that the device generates once it's new in the household. Domesticating apps to reflect the device usage. So how can you be in the spaces that the devices are, and how can your app do that? So for us, it's about matching the content to the device. So in the example of the recipes, should we be putting recipes into our apps because the device is in the kitchen? And then don't just tell customers, don't just instruct them and tell them what to do. Have more of a personality, I suppose. Engage them in dialogue and try and capture some of that excitement. So this is some real-world example of what we've done. On the left-hand side is a new communication we've launched for anyone who takes out a trial of our products. We are now sending them an app news update where we literally just tell them, here's 5 or 6 apps you should have on your iPad. I'm not talking about our app, it's about saying, here's some other things, just helping them with that experience and generating that excitement around the device. Another thing was we've developed our products. We've added weekend content to our app. So before we didn't have sort of lifestyle features on the weekend, some of those supplements you get on the weekend. We realized through doing the research that there was just a day part that we weren't filling and there was a demand for it. So we've added that in, and it's been hugely popular. It's actually Saturdays, we get the most views now on our app on a Saturday. And then finally, packages as well. We've really introduced this ability to have a household subscription, so now multiple people can access Telegraph content on multiple devices off the back of one household subscription, because we've acknowledged that these devices are being shared around the household. So just some final thoughts from me as you go away and think about apps. You don't have to have an app, obviously, but it can help. Think about the right type of app for the device, though. I mean, as I say, our iPad app is very different from our mobile apps, and that reflects the way consumers are using those devices. Although you have to think about that, you try not to spend too long putting something out there. You've got to get learning, and things will evolve. We are all learning in this space. It is a new space. And then finally, to really understand how customers are using those apps, by all means, put the analytics tagging in, really analyze it from the data perspective, but also consider doing some research like this, which really gets into the why. Why are customers actually using your apps in this way? And that is it. Thank you.